Friends, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to worship. It's good to see all of you gathered here today. My name is Evan. I'm the pastor here at the Belvidere United Methodist Church. If you're visiting with us this morning, I want to extend you a special welcome and hope that you feel God's love in our presence as we worship together. I would like to bring your attention to a few announcements, and as I do so, please register your attendance using the pew pads that you find at the end of your pews, and then please pass those down the row so that we can have an accurate count of who is joining us in worship today. First announcement, on the back of your bulletin, you'll see the calendar for the week. Because it is the week of Thanksgiving, it's actually a pretty quiet week here at the church. So several of these things that are on the calendar can be scratched from the calendar. So yoga on Monday evening is still on, but the Tuesday calendar through Thursday, all of that is canceled. I assume right up there, there's no choir in this hall. Okay. I know you all love to sing, but singing after you all eat that turkey, well, that would be interesting. So everything is off the calendar from Tuesday through Thursday of this coming week. Our Advent boxes that we do every year for those in our church and our community are due next Sunday, the 26th. And you can see Mary Lou, right, for any more questions, Mary Lou up here. And they'll be assembling those boxes during fellowship hour next Sunday in worship. You'll see the bulletin insert with all the announcements that's in your worship bulletin. Several things going on in the life of our church as we gear up for Advent and the Christmas season. I'll give you a moment and invite you just to look at some of those. I want to bring your attention to just one. That is the Division of Child Protection and Permanency Christmas gifts. That's the third announcement on your insert. Those are downstairs on the tree, the tags and the gifts, all that is ready to go. And Debbie, who heads up our family ministries here at our church, has another plan for that tree that we're going to offer mittens and gloves and hats and things. So the sooner we can take those tags off and buy those gifts, the quicker we can fill that up with another chance and opportunity to minister to those around us. So the tree is downstairs in Fellowship Hall. I invite you after worship during fellowship time to take a moment and to take a tag and help out a needy child and family this Christmas season. Excuse me. Thank you. I knew I was forgetting something. Thanks to you. Thanksgiving community services tonight at the Presbyterian Church right across the green, 7 o'clock. And I'll be preaching, so you'll hear me this morning. So it's a different sermon, I promise you, tonight. I'm not going to recycle it. So it'll be a nice service tonight at 7 o'clock. Participation from the Episcopal Church, the Catholic Church, the Presbyterian Church, and us as well. One other announcement for you. Carolee Gately, who does a lot with our technology here in the church, we've been meeting and trying to figure out, often on Sunday morning you'll hear some interference happening with the microphone. So Carolee came and gave us some time this week and we tweaked it all. And what she also shared with me is that several frequencies in our community that use radio calls, so EMS, fire, police, they're all in the same frequency as our system here. They recently redone all that. So if there's a call, that frequency is much stronger, and that's going to override, and that might be causing some interference. It's really nothing on our end as far as we can tell. But one thing that might help us in worship, and if you would just oblige me, if you'd be able to do this, sometimes phone calls coming in on your phone, even though you have it on vibrate or silent, or a text message coming in, that can cause interference too. So if you're not really expecting a call or you need to have your phone on, if you can turn that on to airplane mode or do not disturb, so that things just go to voicemail and we don't actually get calls, that might help us with some of the interference problems that we've been having with our sound system. Does that make sense? And if you don't know how to put your phone on Do Not Disturb, I really don't either. But I do know it's a feature that phones have. So hopefully you can figure it out, and if not, you can maybe see somebody here. Send them something to do that. So. Friends, as we begin our worship service this morning, I ask you to please stand as you are able to join our call to worship that's printed in the bulletin.
Great and glorious God, we gather to worship you. We lift our eyes to you in reverent awe before your majesty.
Great is the Lord our God, and greatly to be praised.
Generous and merciful God, we come to worship you. We lift our eyes to you, giving thanks for your compassion.
Gracious is the Lord our God, and greatly to be praised.
Welcoming and empowering God, we worship you. We lift our eyes to you, and we celebrate your faithfulness.
Holy is the Lord our God, and greatly to be praised. We lift our eyes, seeking to worship and praise our God. Amen.
Let's remain standing for the opening prayer. God of fall and winter, God of spring and summer, you alone know the seasons of our lives. Let the season of darkness and doubt pass away, that we may be reborn into light. Lead us into a season of light and warmth, a season of joy, a season of clarity, a season where we are equipped for every good work. Lead us into a season of building your kingdom, and we will put aside all the ways of darkness to live as children of light. Amen.
You may be seated. Before I introduce a special guest who's with us in worship today, two announcements that I forgot because I took out my inserts in my bulletin. One in the blue sheet is the Belvidere United Methodist Church alternate gifts. Christmas gifts, you'll see that there's Heifer and Habitat for Humanity. So if you want to do some alternate Christmas gift giving this year, you can use this sheet and benefit from those mission projects. And also the yellow sheet that's an insert in the bulletin. This is an Advent project that the UMW is helping spearhead, but it's going to be a project that the entire church is invited to engage in during the season of Advent. We will be collecting the necessary supplies and assembling birthing kits. If you see the supplies that we asked for here, Just these supplies put together in a kit and sent overseas to certain areas where proper birthing conditions and sanitary conditions are not that common. These can really help cut down on mortality rates for both the mother and the child during the childbirth process. And what better time to be thinking about safe childbirth and making these kits than during the season in which we're looking forward to the birth of the Savior. So you'll see this list here in the bulletin insert. Downstairs in Fellowship Hall on the table to your right as you enter Fellowship Hall, there is a sign-up sheet, and if you want to bring a certain number of supplies, you can write that down on the sign-up sheet. One clarification or note about the list here. Some folks in the UMW are having difficulty finding single razor blades that have the cardboard sheath over them. So I went on Amazon and found 100 for $6. Each of them having the cardboard sheath. So I purchased those. And listen, if we get more than 100 kits, I'll be glad to go on Amazon and get more. But that's I guess that can be our goal now, is 100 kits. So none of you need to bother looking for razor blades. The church will be supplying those for the kits. So you can scratch that off your list, and you can supply the other things that are there on the list. Well, this morning in worship, as we've been trying to highlight some of our ministry partners and things happening here in our community, last Sunday we had Evelyn Hoppler, who is an officer with the Salvation Army, the person with whom we as a church work closely when we're doing ministry in our community with the Salvation Army. She was here in worship and presented what she does and what she and the church, the Salvation Army and the church are partnering to do. Today, we're going to welcome Mark Young in worship with us today. Mark has really been instrumental in spearheading the development of the new community center here in Belvidere. And Mark will come forward and share a little bit about the community center and ways that we as a church can get involved with this new community project. Could you welcome Mark in worship with us?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak today about the Community Center at Belvidere. The mission of the Community Center at Belvidere is to provide a safe, educational, cultural, and recreational environment for citizens of all ages, and to promote positive unity in the town and its surrounding communities. In the beginning, the Community Center was an idea that was conceived over a chat at dinner. It was hatched at a meeting of the Community Roundtable. It's been nurtured by a small group of advisory committee volunteers and our mayor, Joe Kennedy. It has been encouraged by the townspeople. It has been enabled, and I mean that in the positive way, by both the Methodist and the Presbyterian churches here in town. It has been approved and appointed unanimously by the town council. Adopted a new home at 301 2nd Street. This all began in late February of this year, and now, 9 months later, after its conception, our doors are open at the center at the corner of 2nd and Greenwich Streets. Recently, we've been very fortunate to have been chosen by the Travis Mannion Foundation, their Operation Legacy, Nationwide Day of Service Program project, to be a recipient of this honor. We began our weekend with a group of students from the Belvidere High School Green Dot and Honors Clubs who came and helped us with the landscaping, which I think most of you have hopefully noticed, as well as the interior of painting and cleaning. The following day on Saturday, the community came and pitched in, so we have really enhanced the interior and exterior of our environment at the center. And because of our new home, we are able to look towards expanding our activities and programs. We have more designated space, which equals more hours of operations and opportunities in the future. And speaking of the future, our future initiatives are including a wellness program, which we just began last week at the center with a friend of the Methodist Church, Michelle B. Hayes, leading a yoga class every Saturday at 8 a.m. Yesterday, we also added to our program at 10 a.m. chair yoga for those of us that don't have the balance that we used to. It was a very wonderful class, the first time I'd ever taken a yoga class, and I was able to feel like I could really participate because I had something to hold on to stabilize me when I was being a tree. We're also looking forward to initiating some lecture series at the center for adults and actually for people of all ages. We were thinking of the possibility of a series called Did You Know? That the Peakless River starts as a little gurgle in Sussex County, where it becomes a creek, for those of you who know what a creek is, and then comes and flows and meanders down our way and becomes the mighty Peakless. Did you also know that Belvidere is rich in history, not only with the Civil War, but the Revolutionary War? Who knew? Did you know? I didn't. We're also looking to incorporate educational activities such as tutoring for our students, the possibility of having some classes that will enhance the students' abilities to take their SAT test before they head off to college and try to get into a college of their choice. We also co-sponsor with other organizations in town. This past spring, we co-sponsored a birdhouse building with the Lions Club, and also highlighted the plight of the bluebirds and their migratory, whatever that word I'm trying to search for is. And we also partnered with the rec committee at our dive-in movie this past summer, where we showed Jaws at the Belvidere Public Pool. And had 100 people come with the theme is you're going to need a bigger float. And we're planning upcoming movie nights also with the Playhouse here in town on December the 18th. We're going to be showing The Christmas Gift, starring John Denver, and also have one of the screenwriters in attendance for a Q&A afterwards. So Evan was asking about your involvement, because we cannot do this alone. We need your help. We also need your time and your talents to possibly lead or create a class or a series. Your ideas and suggestions on what you would like to see and enjoy at the center are invaluable to us. With your involvement and to the best of all of our abilities, we will strive to make the center a safe, educational, cultural, and recreational gathering place for all ages. Gandhi once said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." And many volunteer programs and activities here at the Methodist Church. Participated in one, which is the farming session led by Kathy Boo, which is an incredible project for those that are in need and homeless. Anyway, to cut this to come to a closing point, today we have in the congregation Ellen Fay and Bob Shelton, who are advisory council committee members along with me. And we would love to answer any questions that you might have at the coffee hour after church. We've also brought and put in the back of the church some of our December calendars, which will highlight our activities for the month. There, we would love to have your participation there, and we love the fact that you gave us the opportunity to share our story with you today. Have a wonderful day, and thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Today's Psalter reading comes from Psalm 90, verses 1 through 12. And you can follow along in the hymnal on page 809. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations.
Before the mountains were brought forth, wherever you have formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God.
You turn us back to the dust and say, turn back, O mortal ones.
For 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it is past, or as the watch in the night.
You sweep them away. They are like a dream, like grass which is renewed in the morning.
In the morning it flourishes and is renewed, in the evening it fades and withers.
For we are consumed by your anger, by your wrath we are overwhelmed.
You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your countenance.
For all our days pass away under your wrath. Our years come to an end like a sigh.
Years of our life are 70 or even by reason of strength 80. Yet their span is of toil and trouble. They are soon gone and fly away.
Who considers the power of your anger, the awesomeness of your wrath?
So teach us to number our days, that we may receive a heart of wisdom.
Thus ends the word of the Lord. And today's first lesson comes from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. And if you'd like to follow along your Bible, it's on page 1840. But as to the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need to have anything written to you. For you yourselves know well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. There is peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them as travail comes upon a woman with child, and there will be no escape. But you are not in darkness, brethren, for that day to surprise you like a thief. For you are all sons of light and sons of the day. We are not of the night or of darkness. So then let us not sleep, as others do, but let us keep awake and be sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk are drunk at night. But since we belong to the day, let us be sober and put on the breastplate of faith and love, and for a helmet of hope of salvation. Not destined us for wrath, but to attain salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ, who died for us so that whether we wake or sleep, we might live with him. Therefore, encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. Thus ends the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Sing to the Lord of harvest, sing songs of love and praise.
With joyful hearts and voices, your hallelujahs raise.
In the rolling seasons, in steadfast order move. Sing to the Lord of harvest, a joyous song of love. The clouds record with rain, the deserts bloom and spring, the hills keep up in gladness, the valleys laugh and sing. The hills that with abundance, and nature sings in peace.
Sometimes we take that interference as divine favor. Okay, so it's all behind friends, right? Friends, I invite you to stand for the reading of today's gospel, and for all the children to please come forward up here to the chancel steps. Hey, Abby. Today's gospel is taken from Matthew chapter 25, starting at the 14th verse. Again, the kingdom of heaven will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags. What's God saying to us about the scripture? Then he went on his journey. The one who received 5 bags of gold went at once, and he put his money to work, and he gained 5 bags more. So also the one who had 2 bags of gold invested his and gained 2 bags more. But the man who received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned, and he settled accounts with them. The one who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. He said, Master, you've entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I've gained 5 more. His master replied, Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in just a few things. I'll put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, you gave me 2 bags of gold. I've gained 2 more. His master replied, Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had 1 bag of gold came, and he said, Master, I know that you're a hard man, harvesting where you've not sown and gathering where you've not scattered seed. So I was afraid, and I went out and I hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, You wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed? Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned it would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that servant outside into the darkness, for there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. This is the gospel of our Lord.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated.
Good morning, boys and girls. Am I loud enough, or should I get the mic? Okay. See? Okay, so how many understood what Reverend Evan just said? Anybody understand that? First of all, what's a talent then?
It's something that you're really, really good at.
Haha, very good. So, put your thinking caps on. What I want you to do is tell me one thing you're really, really good at. Okay, who wants to start? Okay, what are you good at? Do you put your toys away?
Yeah.
Ah, okay, she puts her toys away. You know what, I am going to get the mic so we can actually hear you guys. Okay, so go ahead. What are you good at?
Writing stories.
Writing stories. Good. Who else? I think you might have to come to me. Okay, come on over here.
I'm good at drawing.
Drawing, okay. Anybody else want to share? What are you good at? You want to come over?
Yeah.
Okay. Think hard, everyone. What are you good at?
Video games.
Yeah. Hey, that's good because that means that later on he's going to be able to do a lot with his hands.
I'm good at playing sports.
Sports, okay. Anybody else? You told me, what else are you good at?
I'm cleaning up just a monkey.
Okay, she's cleaned up the monkey. What are you good at?
I have a bunch of like stuff in my room. So I don't clean up that much, but I kind of.
Okay, you kind of clean up, okay. Okay. Anybody else? You're good at coloring. Anybody else have anything else?
Sometimes maybe handstands.
Handstands, okay, good. All right, so now we're good at these things. We heard what you can do. What would happen if you didn't do them? Who do you think would be upset?
Me.
You would be upset if you didn't do them? Okay, that's good. That's good. But who else? Who gave you these talents? God. And came from mom sometimes, yeah. But God actually gave us our talents. And if we didn't use them, would he be sad? Yeah. Would it be kind of like the man who buried his talents in the ground, his money in the ground, and didn't make anything of it? It would be, because we're not using what God gave us. And we have to use what God gives us to keep it going. And maybe you might even become a teacher of writing. No, who's the writer? You're the writer, you're the drawer. Okay, so you might be a teacher of a writer, you might be teaching drawing one day. And that's sharing your talents. You may be sharing them right now, because when you color, you might be coloring with a friend and helping that younger person color in the lines. So you want to grow up to be a teacher. So that means your talents are very important. And you have to use what God gives you. And if you haven't told me what your talent is, I want you to really think about it and say, am I using what God gave me so that I can be a joy to God and so that I can give it to other people? Okay? Thank you very much. And we are going right to Sunday school. So if we walk through and go down, that would be great. Just watch the corner. Thank you.
As our children leave for Sunday school, would you stand for our hymn of preparation, 581 in your hymn book? You may be seated. Please join me in a time of prayer. Gracious and holy God, fill the hearts of these your faithful ones. Kindle within each one of us the fire of your love. May all that we say and all that we do give you honor and glory, for you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. It was a Methodist visiting a Baptist church on a Sunday morning, and the preacher was there near the back and greeted him as he came in and mentioned that, oh, you must be a newcomer. The man said, yeah, and the pastor said, well, do you come from another church, or what faith were you raised in? And the man said, I was a Methodist. And the Baptist said, that's interesting. He said, why are you a Methodist? And the man looked at him and said, well, I guess my grandmother was a Methodist, my mother was a Methodist, and so I'm a Methodist. The preacher looked at him a bit disdainfully, and he said, well, I don't know if that's a good reason. He said, if your grandmother had been an ignoramus and your mother had been an ignoramus, what would you be? The man scratched his head, looked at him, and said, well, I would probably be a Baptist. And I was raised Baptist. I can, you pick on people in your own tribe, right? Somebody told that to me today, and I thought, boy, that's on the internet. I'm going to share it. I love my Baptist friends. I really do. So we're continuing a sermon series on a Christian approach in response to death and mortality, and how we face that. And certainly recent news events of the past 2 or 3 weeks have given us pause and some direction for how we approach tragedy and death, and what it means to be a Christian and to recognize our own mortality. How many of you have started your Christmas shopping already? Holy smokes, just 3 of you? We got some people in trouble. I don't know about you, but I wait until the very last minute. And then I go on Amazon Prime, and I order stuff, and it gets there by Christmas Day. I've never been one to approach that probably as systematically and as carefully as I should. I've always been, anybody get anxious buying gifts for somebody else? Well, I don't know what people want, And people ask me, what do you want? So, roast piece, I don't know what I want. A nice cheeseburger, really. It's not that difficult. I don't really need much. When I go on Amazon.com, I don't know if any of you have seen this, I'm getting emails multiple times a day counting me down to how many shopping days I have between now and Christmas. And what my deadlines are for free 2-day shipping, free overnight shipping, no, free overnight shipping is not free, but overnight shipping, free 2-day shipping, all of this stuff, multiple emails a day. And when you go on Amazon, you'll see, you get ready for Black Friday deals. They're rolling that out already. Anybody else feel overwhelmed by that? I feel overwhelmed by it just because I can't keep up with the number of emails, but it also speaks to our culture. But how obsessed we can be with stuff and material goods and marking down how many days that we can shop for this or for that, and that becomes the focus. So as I was thinking about that and the season that is now upon us in the shopping, I thought, that can translate to our lives. Each one of us is allotted a number of days on this earth. None of us know how many that could be. Just turning on the news and seeing stories of mass shootings, natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes, hits us with the reality anew that for each one of us today or tomorrow, Could be the last day. None of us know. None of us are guaranteed a tomorrow. That is before the psalmist, Psalm 90, the psalm that we read responsibly today. This is probably, scholars have determined, probably the earliest psalm in the entire book of Psalms. And it's a prayer, as most psalms are, either prayers or songs of praise. It's a prayer attributed to Moses. Now, what do we know about Moses? What did Moses do for 40 years? Wandered, looking for the promised land. You wonder if Moses, and as he was getting older and he realizes his days were numbered, do you think Moses ever thought of his own mortality? Well, Psalm 90 indicates that he did. In Psalm 90 juxtaposes, it puts two things together and asks us to think about our own mortality in the light of God's vastness and eternal greatness. So I want to read Psalm 90 to you again. And as I read it, I want you to close your eyes or do whatever you need to do to really be in an attitude of being able to hear the song. And I want you to listen for those two things. Listen to how Moses, to whom this is attributed, listen to how he weaves these two things together. God's greatness, God's power, God's glory, God's majesty, and humanity's frailty, fragility, our own mortality. Listen to Psalm 90 again. Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You turn people back to dust, saying, return to dust, you mortals. 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the nighttime. You sweep people away in the sleep of death. They are like the new grass of the morning. In the morning it springs up new, but by evening it is dry and withered. We are consumed by your wrath and terrified by your indignation. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. All of our days pass away under your wrath. We finish our years like a moan. Our days may come to 70 years or 80 if strength endures, yet the best of them are but trouble and sorrow, for they pass away quickly and we fly away. If only we knew the power of your anger. Your wrath is as great as the fear that is your due. So, teach us to number our days, that we may gain the heart of wisdom. Do you hear how the psalmist weaves the two together? That for God, 1,000 years are as one day. And yet, the psalmist likens the human existence to one day. It's like grass that in the morning it pops up, it's fresh with the dew, it's lively. But by evening, it's dry. The very first verse of the psalmist says, Lord, you have been our dwelling place through all generations. This is the benefit of having friends who are actually in academia. I can ask them questions. And I asked a friend of mine who knows Hebrew, like the back of her hand. I said, what do you know about Psalm 90? And she said, there's something really interesting in verse 1. The NIV translates it dwelling place. Some translations render it just a little bit differently. You've been our house. You've been our fortress. You've been our abode. But she said, if you look at the Hebrew, and if you were to really liken it to a place in our homes today, it would be like, God, you have been our den. You've been our family room. Now, how many of you, it's the case in our parsonage next door, when you walk in the door, there's like a formal living room or sitting room. Now, when I grew up in a house with the same thing. That's where we would entertain like the Jehovah's Witnesses who came and knocked on the door. You bring them into the family room and no further, or people who were trying to sell you something, or people who were just acquaintances. But it was friends. It was family that you invited into the living room, to the den. The den meant if you were there with somebody else, you had a relationship with them. You knew them well. You were on a first-name basis, and you wanted them into the very inner parts of your house. It was open to them. And Moses is using the same concept when it comes to God. Is that God, you've been our den, you've been our friend, our companion. We've had a relationship together. You know all that there is to know about us. Moses starts with that. And then he goes through and he talks about human mortality. Sometimes, particularly as, mainline Protestants and Western people in 2017, we tend to balk sometimes when we come across scriptures that talk about God's wrath or God's anger or justice, which I think is a bit unfortunate. And it's also not quite true to exactly what those words meant in Hebrew and to their original readers. This is not that the psalmist is saying, oh God, you're so wrathful, you're just waiting to squash sinful humanity when we step out of line. No, it's acknowledging God's power over all creation. And it's acknowledging God's justice, yes, divine justice, but also God's very nature. We have to remember that everything, all of these attributes that the psalmist talks about, all of it come from a center of love. Even in the Old Testament, I know some of us go to the Old Testament and say it's hard to find a God of love here. The God of love is all over the Old Testament. And there's some pretty harsh stuff in the New Testament as well. The gospel reading this morning, sending somebody out to where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. The God of the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, the core of God's essence is love. Everything else comes out of that. And the psalmist recognizes that the core of God's center is love. And do you see how the psalmist, in those 12 verses, how the psalmist starts and ends? Moses' prayer begins by acknowledging that God has not failed God's people. God has been trustworthy and faithful. It's as though they've been together in the most friendly, intimate parts of a house together. They've shared that relationship. And so the psalmist acknowledges that and then goes from there. And then ends with this word, so. And often when you see the word so in the biblical text, he's moving to some sort of application for what's come before. He says, so, because we're mortal, because our days are lived, our own mortality. Recognizing that even though our lives here on earth in the span of eternity are just a whisper, Even so, God has entrusted us with time and energy and talent encapsulated in our days. We're to be good stewards of that and to spend it in ways that make an impact in the world around us. May it be our prayer, just as it was Moses, to number our days, to make the most of each one, to love God, to love our family, our spouses, our partners, our friends, our community, to live each day with gratitude for God, for what God has blessed us with. Teach us to number our days so that we might gain wisdom. Amen. Would you please join me in prayer? Holy and loving God, you are indeed our dwelling place. We are in your very presence at this very moment. You know all about us. You know the number of our days. You know the parts of us that we keep hidden from everyone else. And yet, God, in the midst of it all, as imperfect and frail as humanity is, you've entrusted each one of us to be stewards. May we be people who spend our days wisely. May we live with an eye toward you for eternity. We're loving our neighbors as we love ourselves. God, you know the needs of our hearts before we even ask it. But we know that when we come to you in prayer, you promise to share our burdens with us, to lighten our loads. And so this morning we take a moment to lift up those who are on our hearts. I'll lift up Andrew, Sue, Michael, Dave, Diga, Eric, Lynn, and Peggy. Pray for your healing presence in their lives at this moment.
Becky and Josh.
Holy God, we lift up to you those who have been named today. We pray this in and through the name of your Son, Jesus the Christ. And we join together in praying the prayer he taught us to pray. Our Father,
Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
our ushers come forward to receive our morning offering.
Let us bow our heads in prayer. We have the opportunity to give thanks through our offering of ourselves and our possessions to the work God calls us to do. We cannot repay God for our lives, our minds, the beauty of the earth and the sky, the abundance of resources that we enjoy. But we can respond with acts of gratitude and kindness, with generosity and thanksgiving. Let us give with joy.
Almighty God, we give you thanks for the gifts that have been offered up today. May these gifts be used to bring your love into the world around us. As we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Sisters and brothers, go forth in peace. May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all. And all of God's people said, Amen.